Hey everyone, Stegar here, and welcome back to Hunterville. So, a couple of episodes ago, back in episode 21, I deleted that massive chunk of the city, including where the stadium now sits and the train station. And in today's episode, I'm glad to announce that we're going to be finally finishing that little bit of the city that's left over from what I demolished, and also sort of reworking one of the other inner city areas that I've already built. So for those of you that are new to the channel, welcome to Hunterville. This is a project that I started back in like September 2019, and honestly haven't been working on it much over the past year, and the footage in today's episode is from like last year, so like mid last year at least. But this is sort of based off New Zealand cities, and it's taking a lot of inspiration from New Zealand, including whichever New Zealand brands I can find on the Steam Workshop, which includes the Bunnings that I placed down here. That was actually created for an Australian series by $2.20, I think. But we also have Bunnings Warehouse in New Zealand, so I was like really excited to finally find a place in the city where it made sense to place this down, because I've been focusing mainly on like residential and like the downtown core up until this point, that it never really made sense to put it in like a big box hardware store. Yeah, we have Bunnings in New Zealand, and then there's the like main competitor, which is Mitre 10 Mega. But here we're going to have a Bunnings, and because there's like some 15% price beat guarantee thing, I can't put a Mitre 10 Mega close to the Bunnings, otherwise it wouldn't be realistic for that main like 15% guarantee thing, because otherwise people would just go between the two. Anyway, I'm putting down some car dealerships along like this main road, as this is like the main road leading sort of how I orient it. It's northwest out of the city towards sort of the future suburbs that I'm yet to build. But yeah, I mean, car dealerships are sort of a thing that you find along main roads quite often, including there's an intersection in Auckland with like 5 legs, and on like 4 corners of this 5-way intersection there's like a car dealership along each, and then like the road going down from there has car dealerships, so it's very much realistic in that sense to be doing this. And here is another car dealership. I think this one's like Hyundai or something like that. Yeah, and just going through and plotting the cars down again. I probably won't get another chance to mention this, but I also made these side roads as in to like left in, left out only, as I figured like since this is a busy road and those side streets only really serve like a few businesses and things, it probably isn't like super demanding that people can turn from every which way. And I mean, there's other ways to get to where you want to go if you can't turn right into those places or right out, that it probably doesn't matter that much. And in the rest of this little area that we're working on now, I decided to just fill it up with some of the houses that I'd made in the asset editor. As this is sort of the edge of that city fringe area with all the industrial, and we're kind of transitioning out now into houses. Well, it's not really a transition, it's kind of just here's some houses and here's some industry or big box store or whatever. I also put some billboards on the corners of this intersection, like this one here, since they have like a decent audience for whatever advertisements they have. I think I put another one in, but I'm not sure whether I'm showing it here. And here's sort of just my process of going through and trying to find some houses to put into the area. So now we're moving on to the area a bit closer to the stadium, and I imagine that where the stadium sits like might have used to be industrial, just given the whole like area with the railway line, and it's like close to the city but sort of on the outskirts of like the downtown, that the land would be cheap enough for like warehouses or factories or what have you. So that's sort of the basis of this area and why I'm putting in like some warehouses here, and also kind of just to fill up the space. I feel like making these warehouses and things is not like my most favorite thing to do. I think I said that in like the last episode or the episode before that. And yeah, here's just like another block. I kind of got creative with trying to squeeze in like a McDonald's in here with a drive-through and everything, which you'll see me starting on in a second. And I also wasn't really sure how to deal with this sort of like awkward leftover bit of sort of a circle left in between the stadium and the road. But yeah, here's this McDonald's, and this asset is like made for like America and the US and everything, where like the cars drive on the right, but since New Zealand drives on the left, like the drive-through sort of needs to be on the other side of the building so that the cars don't like go in the wrong way, and the queue can only hold like 2 cars for the drive-through. So I tried flipping that with procedural objects, but kind of didn't work because it flipped like the McDonald's wording on the top of the building, and I guess I just didn't really think of other ways to deal with that. Like, I mean, I can think about it now, taking another procedural objects copy and like removing the lettering from one and putting it back with a different one, but I didn't think of that at the time. So the drive-through is kind of like really short for how it should be, so the cars are going to like queue up onto the road if it were actually a functional McDonald's, but it's not really. And then I was just like messing around with parking lots with that. But anyway, here we're starting on like this little office building. Sort of, I imagine that like as the city's growing, like this area is sort of getting turned into more like sort of part of the downtown, with like office buildings and things. There's honestly not a very big parking lot for that office building given its location, but it is like somewhat within walking distance of the train station, sort of accounting for scaling factors of how a city Skylines city might compete at a real life city. And also building like a self-storage lot here. Do you call them warehouses? Or I'm not exactly sure what you call them, but there are buildings anyway. And decided to detail this up with a fence around the edge, and it's just sort of like a symmetrical pattern of like a line of 3 and then like the office building and then like one off to the side and like a way to drive in between them to get into those middle ones. And then this awkward little area which I don't really like because it's grass, but I managed to sort of address this with a whole bunch of decals, so it looks just like an empty lot that hasn't been touched, which I guess is like sort of realistic. It might be like in the process of about to be developed or something. And then here is like supposed to be like a little substation for the train tracks, and there's like electrified train line, and I used like a overbridge to create the like stairs up to that door since it's on a different level, and then just like copied this wall over and sort of created some detailing with like plants and things in between this and the railway line. And yeah, that's sort of the gist of what this is just like some substation with some like awkward detailing around it because I didn't really know how to fill out the space. But yeah, I mean, there's also a massive parking lot there that I guess would be used for like the stadium. I don't really see any other use for it. And honestly, I think when I was doing cinematics for this section, it really wasn't used well, so there's sort of no point for it. But here's some nice trees so that they can catch on fire when the sparks come off the rails. So we're in game now, and here's the area we were just working on. You can see this McDonald's down here with its really short queue for the drive-through because of the reason that I kind of discussed earlier in the video. And here's the Bunnings. I think the sun's pointing the wrong way, that you can see a lot of shadows, but yeah, here it is. And I think there was like some barbecue prop with it, but I don't seem to have that. And yeah, if we just zoom out, you can see it's sort of like all industrial around this area. Oh, there's something wrong with this. This was like the building got updated, and yeah, for some reason it like reset the procedural object. I have this set up and should have done this off camera, but we're gonna do it now. Let's see, import this one, problem solved. That was not difficult, but that's because I've done it before. Yeah, so here you've got like over the last couple of episodes we've been working sort of in this general area. You've got like industrial here, some like existing industrial bits here, and some that I added recently as well. And then sort of like industrial all around the train line, and then sort of like some houses here, and then sort of slowly this part's been redeveloped. I don't know whether it would have been like low density houses here before, or whether it would have been like industrial stuff, but doesn't matter too much. It's like nice and close to the train station there that goes to the city. Should unpause it so you can see things going. And we've got like the trains doing weird things. I think this is just because I unpaused it from like starting the game up. But you've got the Martangi trains from Wellington, and the station is actually like kind of busy for what it is, considering it's like the only station that's actually like functional apart from the main station at the moment. But yeah, that's sort of this area. And then if we like go down here, you've got like some office building here, this like custom parking lot that I built a couple of episodes ago. And sort of the main anchor of the last 5 episodes is probably between the train station and the stadium, and they're all like nicely interconnected, and like some bus sort of interchange here. I don't like the green. That's just because I changed the LUT recently, and it sort of doesn't really work as well as it did in my last one, where it like seemed darker or like less intense or something. And yeah, here is the underground metro station that I worked on. Oh, I was sort of hoping that the train was coming in, but I mean leaving's okay as well. You can sort of see how it functions. They're not always going to go out that way, it's just how it's set up for now because I haven't finished setting it up. Escalators that aren't like perfectly aligned, but it's close enough. Oh, that lift actually works. I didn't actually realize that. Yeah, now we're lost in the void. Yeah, I'll finish this later, connecting that up with the rest of the railway network when I decide where it's going to go. But yeah, we actually made some like decent sort of reconstruction of this like whole area here, where like the train line used to go straight out this way and then get to about here and like turn up and join with this bit and come down, and there was like an elevated train line that went somewhere through this neighborhood as well, and some like awkward little suburb that was cut off from everything else with like a decent chunk of houses here, and that's now been replaced by industrial. And our residential demand is really high, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bulldoze like most of this, I think, and like repurpose it as like part of the suburb, but also like sort of the edge of the city is like slowly growing into this area. Oh, there must be a sports game because the traffic is atrocious. It's mainly just like this section here, I think, because like all there it's all good, and you can see that people were like Oh no, it's just finished. You can see everyone like walking out. This was honestly kind of like a good point to be able to showcase how this all works and everything, and I think there'll be people going down that lift shaft and then like coming out at the bottom, and just absolute traffic chaos. But the stadium does have a capacity of like 25 or 30,000 people, which is like 24, which in a city of 12,000 is quite a lot. But anyway, let's not ramble on for too long and instead compare how things have changed over the past few episodes in this area. And you can see quite a difference here actually. Anyway, now we're coming in to basically just destroy this whole chunk of the city and start from scratch really. Going through and deleting everything, and then to sort of form the foundation of this area, I just replaced the roads by rebuilding them, as like all the nodes were in the wrong places because I'd like put in little car park entrances and things everywhere. And to create the foundation of this area, I decided to place down all these houses, as like before the city had expanded, like the central downtown area had expanded up to this point, there would have been houses there, and by putting them in, it sort of gives you a foundation, so you can like pick which lots get developed, and then like maybe there's the odd house there that hasn't been developed yet, and you kind of see that effect later on once we've got through a bit more of this and I've actually built up the area. But here what I'm doing is I'm building like one of the main roads leading out from the highway, and was kind of basing this a little bit off the like extension of Green Lane West between like two major roads in Auckland, since that area seems like it was sort of non-existent before cars were, you know, the predominant means of travel, and then that was built to accommodate the car, which isn't ideal from a pedestrian's perspective, as that big road sort of cuts off that part of the city from the city centre, but nonetheless it's unfortunately realistic in some cases. And here I've placed down this New World asset made by Mayor Won't, and created a parking lot for that too that comes off the main road as well as one of those side roads. And here just sort of redoing the line markings for this intersection, as I think I upgraded this road or changed the lanes or something or other, and just doing all the lane markings for like the like turning lanes mainly, since they're sort of the ones that people might want some guidance as to where their car should go. I mean, straight through you kind of just drive straight and you end up in the other lane. And here's sort of where it splits off to sort of widen out from 3 to 4 or something or other, and I just decided to put in those like little delineator things to sort of force people coming out of that supermarket car park to not perform a right turn or to right turn into that, because on a busy road like that there's like too much conflict between turning vehicles and vehicles wanting to go straight that they just ban that, and there's alternatives coming from that car park to go in different directions anyway, so it's not like too much of a concern. And then just doing some detailing out the front with the like advertising signs so that people know that the supermarket's there, as well as I put in that little sort of planter area or grassed area, and then we're going to fill it up with trees in a second. But the new wood also came with like the trolley stand bay things, so I'm putting those in too. Nice to actually have some of these, since it's like one of those small details that sort of just adds to the realism, I guess. Like, you're probably not going to notice it until you like zoom on that specific spot, and given the scale of the city, it's probably not going to be all that exciting. And here just going through and trying to pick out which tree I wanted there and using prop line tool, and then just sort of filling in this corner where the like road sort of bends out in some little like informal path where people might have cut across, or just some other reason why that's dirt and the rest of it's not. And then here, this is like the old road that would have been here before this like major arterial was built, and just trying to create the cul-de-sac head, which was a little bit awkward in the spot, but I managed to do it. And then just some sort of higher density buildings, since it's like, well, this area is new anyway, so like, let's put some newer buildings in there to sort of tell the story of, you know, how things change with time and all that. And then just sort of the generic, here's some empty space, let's fill it with trees. And then we're moving on now to some like sort of like small terraced apartment buildings, just like right on the edge of the city centre. It's like, well, just a more demanding area that you build higher density houses here. But of course you've got to have a parking lot, otherwise people can't have cars at this development, basically. And then trying to decide on like a sort of more dense apartment high-rise building to fit here, and I think I ended up going for that one, but I'm not entirely sure. I didn't show the parking lot for that hotel on camera, as it wasn't like super exciting and was just really finicky to try and work with the levels and things. But here we're building like another little sort of infill area, and there would have been like 6 houses here, or 6, yeah, I think that's right, 6 houses here beforehand, and that's been upgraded to like 12, which I guess is good, and there's also like space for people to park their cars there too, and sort of doing much the same here. But this time I think it replaces like 6 houses with 8 houses or something. Mainly because the parking lot takes up a lot of space, which isn't exactly all that unrealistic, to be fair, but I kind of had to work through this a bit to sort of decide how I wanted the buildings, and these are just like from the Green Cities DLC, and there's like mirrored versions, so I decided to use that rather than like the exact same building, since it looked a bit better. But then I think I changed, that's that same area now with like more terraced houses and a bit different, and there's like what 18 there instead of like the 8 that I had there before, so much denser than what it was. And I was just putting this park in here since we kind of need parks in this area for the amount of people living there, and just like the amenity values and all the rest of that, and providing a little playground for you know, kids to play at. I guess there's not really any other way to explain that. And then just sort of some commercial stuff along the edge of this main road, which leads out to sort of the northwest of the city, as I was mentioning earlier in the episode. And sort of some like older warehouse building that might have been like converted for other purposes, and some other buildings and apartments and things. I ended up actually changing that to some much denser stuff. I forget what these assets are, but they are like quite nice and easy to use, and just create like a modular sort of apartment complex, and then like apartment building under construction and another apartment building here, as we're sort of like now really getting into the city centre and stuff. And then I think this was the last thing I built in this episode, was like a construction site, and using these fences as like the I don't know what the proper word for it is, but like sort of the like fencing around where you pour the concrete. And then just using these concrete slabs to kind of show the concrete has been poured. And you'll see me in a second, I sort of turn some of these into procedural objects and drag the corners down. And then that kind of shows that like the concrete is in the process of being poured, since like I usually take most of the shots in the city in the middle of the day, so it'd be like cool to have some construction site that's actually like actively having stuff going on, and like the concrete's being poured and things. And then I like drop a concrete mixer in beside this too, so it's like sort of just adding to that story, albeit there's sort of a weird thing to add in, but I guess it just adds a little bit extra to the city. And then putting, I think this was like a fence of some sort, and I turned it into procedural objects. And this is just like the wire mesh for like reinforcing the concrete. And then for this construction site, I also added in some columns. I'm not going to show all that because it's pretty repetitive. So now we're back in game, and you can see the area we were just working on as well as this area that we worked on earlier in the episode. And sort of my future plans are to rework this river because it's like ridiculously wide for what it is, that it sort of just feels like it separates the what will be two sides of the city way too much. I mean, I've just got some like rubbish incinerators here for city services and a few other things, but they'll go. So yeah, we're going to work on sort of rejigging this river. I have actually already done that at the time of recording this. And then sort of just the, for orientation purposes, north is roughly at the top of the screen, so we'll be expanding into this sort of western area of the city, and possibly also doing some other expansion on this side. I've started creating like a lot of houses based on like different time periods, so I'm going to also replace basically every suburban house in the city at some point with this new sort of way I'm going about doing it, but it should make it a lot more interesting in terms of like different architectural styles through different time periods. But yeah, we're gonna expand in this direction in the coming episodes, so if you want to see that, subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you in the next episode whenever I decide to release that.